Hello, and thank you for tuning into Abduction, Victim to Survivor. My name is Abby, and I am your host for today. My podcast is about family abduction and the stories of those who've lived through it. Their stories are filled with pain, hope, and resilience, and I am very passionate about dispelling the myth that when a child is taken by a parent or a family member, it's okay. You will see from the personal stories shared here and from the experts that it is not okay. You'll learn about the harm it causes to the abducted children, the searching parents, and of course, to those who love them. I do my best to create a safe space for people to share heartfelt, painful, and difficult conversations to help you understand family abduction and show those with lived experience that they are not alone. This is personal for me because my son was abducted from me and his life when he was only 10 years old. I want to emphasize that time is of the essence when it comes to recovering missing children. The longer they remain missing, the more pain and trauma the children will experience. Today, I am so excited to have my dear friend Laura on this episode. And Laura and I know each other for a very long time because, of course, Team Hope. And if this is the first time you're tuning in, Team Hope is a volunteer-based peer support network, a program of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And everyone in Team Hope has had or still has a missing or sexually exploited child. And Laura actually came to Team Hope because her daughter had been missing, thankfully recovered. And she came to the training where we had people with all different kinds of case types. And she got to understand different case types. And when it came to family abduction, Laura realized that when she was a child, she was abducted by a family member. And it just opened up all kinds of emotions and just this realization that this has happened to her. And Laura is here today to tell you about her journey and what happened and how it affected her. And I'm just so pleased because I admire Laura so much. I can't even tell you how many college degrees she has. It seems like every time she gets a college degree, she wants, oh, no, I want to get this one. Like it's nothing. Oh, no, I want to get this one. So Laura is, I think she's amazing. She's so empathetic, has such a big heart. And hi, Laura. Hi.
Hi, Abby. You're so kind. Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me onto the podcast. As with you, this is a topic that's near and dear to my heart from a different angle, perhaps, but definitely near and dear to my heart. And the ability to share my story and to let people understand the very diverse world that we are talking about, however dark it is, so diverse. And to share if any part of my story can help somebody understand or identify or partake or whatever it is. I hope that's what the outcome. And I really appreciate your audience taking time to listen to this and to understand. And so I'm really grateful to be here. Thank you so much for asking
Well,
me.
thank you for agreeing, and I appreciate that. And yeah, this is a very safe place for you to tell your story. And that's the reason for the podcast to help people understand. So
Yeah.
I think your story will make an impact on others and maybe help them in their healing journey. So
I sure hope so. I do. And
yeah,
Abby, you have always been a safe space. Let's be very clear about that, not just in this podcast.
thank
And
you.
just to trim it down, I've known you since 2004.
Oh, wow. I
So,
didn't realize it was that long. Wow.
well, I know, but that's math counting because that's when my daughter went missing. And as you said, was recovered
Yes.
alive. She is
Yes.
very well.
And she's getting
And
married.
she's getting married.
Yay!
Yay! Resilience is it's a great word. I would offer to anybody out there when you hear somebody's story, if it seems big and it seems, you know, I'm sorry, or that, I love to hear, well, you're just really resilient, because it's true. I have a definition of that, but we won't go into the definitions. I'm just really grateful that I get to be here, and I'm in a place and a station in my life now that I can share that, and I can help others.
Yeah. Thank you, Laura. Yeah.
Thank you, Abby. So, would you like me just to kind of start with the overdraft, with how, when it happened, how it happened,
And
um,
how old you were, what
and how
year
old
this
I was?
was,
You
and
bet.
your brother,
You
he was part of it too.
He
Yeah.
was. He was.
Yeah.
There it was both of us. Um, so it was in the 70s. I want to make that really clear, not just so we look cool because we were born in the mid 19th century, but so that people understand that attitudes and stuff were different and the same. And so I lived in Redwood City, California, and I came home from school one day, and my mother worked as a nurse 3 to 11. So she was not there when we got home, but we had, we shared the house with somebody who was there, an adult and her child. And I walked up, and there was a van and it was my father's van, I found out. And my father did not live with us. My father he and my mother had gotten divorced years before. I want to say at 12, it probably put us close to 76 or 77, somewhere in that a little fuzzy in the memory. Anyway, I got home and I was told to go get my stuff. I was leaving with my father, whom I probably remembered meeting 5 times, if that. And I panicked and I did not want to go. My brother was already getting his stuff together, and so that would put him at roughly 7. Um, and neither one of us wanted to go, but it was made very clear that there was no choice. There was no one we could call. There was no choice. We were put in the back, and it was a van. And we were taken up to from Redwood City, California, up to Bellingham, Washington, where my father was living at the time. And we slept on his living room floor with a pillow and a blanket and sleeping bags and whatnot, because there was only one bedroom, and he and his girlfriend at the time were sleeping in there. My father was told that things were dangerous for my brother and I. He was told that he had to come take care of us. So his motives were not deny. His motives were he responded to what he thought was a really bad situation, irrespective of whether it was or not. We stayed with my father, my brother and I, for about a month. I didn't know my father. My brother didn't know my father. Um, and it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. I don't know any other way to put it. And confusing. It was so confusing. What happened? Who said what? What happened? No, the adults would not talk about it. I mean, um, it was confusing. And I remember being really upset. And this is going to sound really silly, but I was a child. And my father and my brother was also upset. My father had no TV. He didn't like TV. And it was Happy Days, and Joni and Chachi had the thing going on for Happy Days, and I had to see this last episode because back in the day, Abby, as you well know, we didn't have videos of cassette recorders.
No, we
We
didn't.
didn't have the internet. We did repeats were something the summer may or may not give you. And so my dad's girlfriend at the time, Liz, and her name at the time was Liz Russell. And if Liz Russell is out there in your audience, Liz, I love you, thank you. But she was a very kind woman. She was very kind. She was a student up at Western Washington University, which had a student lounge, which had a TV, which Liz took my brother and I to watch that last episode of Chachi.
Oh,
It meant so much. And it sounds really silly, but it was an adult human being, not just ignoring my needs, not ignoring what I needed, not ignoring my questions, but actually wanted to help me feel better, even if it was only for the half-hour episode.
right.
So we stayed with my father under those conditions for about a month. But my father was a long haul truck driver at the time. He was also a tugboat captain. I mean, he was a very skilled person in moving large things around. But he was a long haul truck driver. You're on the road. He's got no one to take care of us while he was on the road. He drove us down to Medford, Oregon, where his mother lived, and we stayed with his mother. To keep the grandparents separate, she'll be the Oregon grandma. And so we lived with the Oregon grandma. We literally showed up. He and she had obviously talked about it because when we got there, she had one bedroom and she had put up a divider, like a curtain rod with a sheet on it or something, so that we had, our separate spaces. And she slept in the living room, and I didn't understand what that really meant until later. And but still, yet another place. I don't know what's happening. My brother doesn't know what's happening. We were not modeled how to be supportive. We were not mad at each other, but we were very much, our childhood was, crafted around, you better figure it out on your own. But I still remember trying to get my brother to eat his dinner or to get ready for school. And I remember one incident specifically, and the Oregon grandma actually worked in a bowling alley. So I got to go to a bowling alley after school, and that was kind of fun. But I digress. So I'm trying to get my brother ready for school because somebody had to make sure this wayward child got out the door, and I was the oldest. And she comes in and she goes, "Laura, what are you doing?" The Oregon grandma, "What are you doing?" And I said, I'm just trying to get my brother out to school." And she goes, "Well, that's not your job." And I was sure I was in trouble. I was positive I had done something wrong because, at this point, Abby, I have been signaled that my mother didn't want us.
Right.
My father didn't want us.
Yeah.
And now this Oregon grandma wasn't going to want us. What were we going to do? Because nobody came looking for us, Abby. Nobody came looking. Um, we were just off into the ethernet, and it was not okay. It was absolutely not okay. And I said, I just want to get John, I just want to get him ready. And she said, "Laura, that's not your job." And I went, "What?" She goes, "That's my job. I'll take care of that. You're not his mom." And I was flabbergasted. I was 12 and I was given permission to be 12.
Yeah. Finally. Finally.
Finally. Yeah. Because I come from a family who loved me the best they could. And
Yeah.
I tell people they really did. And that just wasn't enough because they didn't get enough in order to learn how to do that. Again, people did the best they could, and children were, talk about seen, not heard, which is why I talk so much now. I we lived with her for a while, but again, nobody came looking for us. And then her grown children, she had four, my father, his brother, and their two sisters. And the two sisters lived nearby, and they started telling her, "Mom, you can't take care of those kids." So here we were again. Nobody wanted us.
Did you know
Um,
that they were telling your grandmother that?
I heard the fighting.
You
They
heard
thought
it.
I heard the fighting.
Oh,
It's the same thing I heard. My mom worked 3 to 7, and my California grandparents would argue with her about she needed to take care of her children. And I heard the fighting. Nobody ever said that to me, but I heard the fighting.
yeah.
And that just, it ingrains this sense of not being wanted. And so then you're kidnapped and it's just sealed. Nobody wants us. Um, and that the feelings around that it's hard to describe, but it's taken really a lot of work as an adult to find a place. I learned through my work, one of my favorite things to say is forgiveness is not about abdication. It is not about clearance of anything. Forgiveness sometimes simply means learning how to change and learning to give up on forgiveness is giving up all hope that the past will change. Yeah, it's sort of this is what happened. Not that it's right.
Go. Letting go
And
of
the letting
anger.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You just let go. And you don't let go overnight. And you don't let go for all. But when I learned how to say forgiveness is giving up all hope of changing the past, so I could see that's what I kept doing in my mind. I was trying to change it. What could I have done different? What could I have? How many people we do that all the time, Abby? It's a very human thing to do. But when you're 12, it's not. There's no good guardrails up yet to understand what that means.
Right.
And it was very ingrained within me. And we stayed with the Oregon grandma for about 9 months. And it was my California grandpa that brought us back, not my mom. He brought us back, and we got to stay up with him. But again, I was just back in that same environment, you know, be quiet, leave us alone, whatever all that was. And the devastation that I couldn't even identify until I could give the right words to it, that it was a kidnapping.
Yeah.
Not it was just, and I found out years later that actually my mother's sister is the one that told my dad that there was grave danger. And so now even she doesn't, care or love. Um, just yet another person who's done something to say you shouldn't be around. And I don't think I understood exactly how because when I did share after Team Hope, my team, being with Team Hope and the training and all the exposure I got to all the different types of ways that children are taken or go missing. I identified with being somebody who had been kidnapped. And I knew as soon as this is how I was in my 40s, Abby. When I knew as soon as I said something to this very safe, wonderful group that had given me so much through the years, through my horrible experience, I thought, well, they're not gonna believe me. They're gonna say that's not really what happened. They're gonna say, Laura, you're silly. Obviously, that is not what happened. Obviously, I got support and I got cared about and I got good information. But when I was 12 and I was alone, I didn't make any friends in Bellingham. In fact, it took me a long time in life to learn how to make friends. I didn't make any friends in Bellingham because I didn't know anybody and we were only there a month. Well, Liz Russell, I'll shout out Liz Russell again. Um, and then when I got to Medford, I didn't know, these are not conscious thoughts, but I didn't know how long I was going to be there. I knew that I needed to make sure that my brother was okay. I knew that that's what I knew, that me and my brother were that's what I knew. I can remember just laying there like 12 years old and so confused and upset and deeply hurt. And I couldn't identify those feelings, Abby, until years later, by the way. It's not like I was 12 years old going, well, I'm feeling very hurt right now. That was not what it was. I was just trying to figure out what I had done wrong. And what could I do different to not never have that happen again? Why didn't they want me? And while I don't think every child that's been abducted has my story, in parental abduction, family abduction, that's the better word. I do think every child, when something like a big traumatic event among the adults happens or to them, wonders what they did wrong. And so as I put my words to that, and I learned how to put my emotions to that, I learned, and I couldn't have learned it until I put the words to it, the way it impacted me throughout my life. Because it was, if something never happened, how could it have impacted me?
Yes.
And you have to name it, whatever it is, it has to be named. And when I got to name it within the very wonderful, safe confines of Team Hope within NCMEC, I can tell you that little papa this, a little papa that, a little pop, and all of a sudden, the light started shining in from this part of my life, right? Pardon me. And as that light, nothing, what they say, secrets die in the light. They grow in the dark and they die in the light. They're like bugs. And I found that I could I could say, oh, well, of course I had such a hard time making friends because I didn't trust people to not reject me. I didn't trust people to care for me. I had an experience before my dad came to get us where somebody actually cared. The moral story is they took the time to ask me what I wanted and how I was, and I was flabbergasted. And so when I was processing just not knowing where I was and what was happening. And the other thing is, Abby, I couldn't, how do I share this with people? Again, it's these secrets, right? And the secrets really keep us sick. I believe that. I mean, you don't have to put a billboard out in, Times Square or anything, but finding a way to give a voice to what it was
Yes.
is paramount. There's no way that anybody, in my experience, and you're more of a professional in this realm than I, but the truth is if I can't give voice, even if people disagree with my voice, if I cannot give voice, then I cannot find my way out of the dark.
Yeah.
But once I can give voice, so I get a name, I know what to call it, then I find a way to give words to what it's called and how it impacted me. Words like I felt abandoned, I felt unloved, I felt unlovable, I felt unworthy. I felt like I had to apologize for my existence in this world for years. But I never would have connected that back to those. I connected to other things, but that really, I think that's what sort of sealed the deal for me because I was 12 and, from there I was moving into teenagehood, which we'll save that for a different podcast. But I found as I walked through my life and I started to do my work is what I call it. I've done my work. The work of understanding that I did not get enough as growing up, and I was an adult now, so I got to decide what enough was, and I sought ways to heal. And I sought ways that were at times extremely uncomfortable, but very safe and important. Uh, like reaching out to you, to Team Hope, and saying, "Yeah, this actually has happened." And the response back, amazing, unexpectedly amazing. And so I find that, you know, and my brother, uh, he's passed on now, but and my brother, I don't want to speak for his story, but he was just as scared. He was so much younger than I was, and we didn't know how to hang on to each other very tight. And I always felt bad about. I felt guilt that I could not hang on to my brother better. So he had a different experience, and I was 12, and when I say I did the best, we did the best we can. Sometimes that's not enough, and I did the best I could, and it just wasn't enough because how can a 12-year-old give enough of that? You know, my grandma Gabarsky saying, "Yeah, I want you kids to come down to the bowling alley, and we could bowl a little bit." And she had a daycare, and and she invited us into her world, even though my dad kind of dumped us on her porch.
Right.
She invited us into her world, and I didn't even understand what that was, but that was sort of that branch that helped me climb out of it because somebody did care about us. When my grandfather and she talked, and he bought our bus tickets up to Redwood City from Medford. It was, oh, they want us back. They did. They loved me. They wanted us back, except when I was 12, and they're like, "Yeah, hi, glad you're here." Um, and that was it. You know. My mother tried to take my brother and I to Disneyland a little while later, and I remember that as a horrible trip. It was horrible because we didn't want Disneyland. We wanted our mom,
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
and for all of my mom's struggles through life, she did the best she could with what she had.
Yeah.
Sometimes that
Yeah.
wasn't enough. And it was my job as an adult. I've been fortunate that I've been find spaces where I can give voice to what happened, what it is, right? Thank goodness. But the feelings that I had, I'm so glad I can express them to you. I am so glad that I can share them with people. I even went so far as to let my manager know I was going to be on this podcast because I don't keep secrets. Not about my life. If other people can talk about, high school, or I didn't have that experience, but if other people can talk about their life, even though it's not perfect, for years I wouldn't talk about mine because it's not what, it was not what the other people were sharing. And as I found voice, as I found courage, and as I healed, I found owning and belonging, and I could talk about my life too. And that I get, if I want to be a productive and meaningful member of my society, which I really do. I think what's important is to understand that I've got work to do, and I don't ever want that work to stop because every time I walk through an uncomfortable barrier, oh, the light shines through on the other side.
Yeah.
I'm going to be driving around in a convertible any day now.
Yeah, I get it. It's a and if something triggers you or, makes you feel a certain way, most people think, "Oh, triggers are bad," but
Oh
it's an
yeah.
opportunity because if something triggers you, you may not have understood or realized before that you were carrying this pain around with you. And now you understand you have a pain. There is something that you need to work on. So it's an opportunity for you to work on it and
Mhm.
continue on your healing journey. So,
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that, I got triggered is a thing people don't like, but I agree with you 100%. And not just because I can heal from that, but because it's not this big, creepy monster in the closet.
right.
I understand. I still, to this day, part of the work I have to do is understand that I am not necessarily separate from the world. I am not the unwanted one at the table. I am not the disposable one. I am me, and I have a right to be where I am.
Yes.
And when I feel other than that, then it's an opportunity to see what do I do with this? Because it has a name and it has the feeling. I don't have to blame anybody. I believe that nobody can make me feel anything, but there are opportunities people will give you to feel a certain way if you take it on.
Yes,
And
you
when
let
you
them. Yes.
That's right. And so
Yeah.
when I can name it and I know what it is, I don't have to let them do that, right? I get to take, "Oh, this is mine. I can look at that. All right then." And I get to move forward and continue on that healing journey, just as you said.
Yeah. And when you do that, when you look into yourself, that's when you have an understanding, and that's how you can work through things, so you're stronger, and
Mhm.
maybe you don't let that happen again. So,
Right.
yeah.
And the resilience that even if it does happen, whether it does, because I tell people I don't try anything. I have to practice a lot though. And
Yes.
so as I practice through my life, these things as they come up, what it is I can remove that self-judgment. I can say, well, of course you responded that way. Of course you did. All right then, girlfriend, let's work on this. What's going on? And I can take it on more as an opportunity to get to know me better, more as an opportunity to understand that what it wasn't the person didn't know my story, perhaps. Come
Right.
on now. And I when I am the person that I need to work with to get to another place, that's when I have hope.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because other people won't change. If it's a noun outside my nose, persons, places, and things, I have no control over what it's going to do.
Right. Right. May I ask you about your relationship with your brother? Did you ever have an opportunity to talk to him about what happened?
No, not really. No, it was this thing that never happened. It was swept under the carpet. It was because my family swept a lot of things under. We had a very bumpy carpet when I was growing up. They swept a lot of stuff under there. And my brother coped with it just differently than I did. And unfortunately, we could identify with it. But I think it put a barrier between us, and I didn't realize it until he has passed away. May he rest in peace.
Oh,
But it put a barrier between us that was unspeakable. And part of it was his relationship with our father was really bad. I'm just going to call it what it is. I don't know to name it. It was really bad, and neither had the tools necessary to find any way to even approach reestablish. And when my brother passed away, I re-experienced it because now the only other person that could, because he knew it happened. We could say, well, at least this didn't, but past that. But when he passed away, so did like the legitimacy of what had happened because other people called it different, but he was a witness.
yeah, he was there with you. So, yeah.
Yeah, he went with he was taken too. Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah.
as a child, you see things differently than you do as an adult, especially being a mother.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, completely different. It's amazing. As a child, it's just this big gloom of confusion, and I don't have the emotional or maturity or any of those skills that we develop as we grow to cope with the moment. All of the healing has had to be retrospective, right? In the moment, there's nothing. I was sitting there terrified of what if I was going to do something to upset somebody, or if and I did not turn into a person who lived that way. I got on the other side. That's another podcast as well. But my personality as such is that I don't, I will voice things. Thank God as the healing journey has continued, though, I've learned how to voice things better because words matter. But it's almost like instead of the coping mechanism, well, back in the day, it was fight, flight, or freeze.
Yes.
And now I know fawn is a part of that.
Yes. Fawn is
I
that. Yeah.
became somebody, yeah, I became somebody that didn't understand what fight or flight was about, or excuse me, what freeze or flight was about. All I knew was to fight.
I just want to say, Laura, I remember when you first came to Team Hope,
Hmm.
and um, you've you had a very tough exterior, very tough. I mean, I knew there was a big heart in there, but it was hard. You're very protective of yourself, you're
Hmm.
defensive,
Yes.
and you grow. And I don't know if it was because you had the realization of what happened and you had the acceptance and love of the people in Team Hope, who
Mhm.
believed you and wanted to help heal you, but I have watched you grow, and it it it's like a cactus where, it has a flower, but the flower doesn't come out until the plant actually feels safe at a certain time of day,
Mhm.
and you are that cactus, but you're blooming all the time now, and
Oh, Abby, that's a great visual.
it's so it is, it's so it was so beautiful to watch you on your journey, and, just to know that the realization of what happened to you as a child changed everything.
Oh, absolutely. It cemented what was already in place, I think, because I already lived in a situation where I was either transactional about things as a child, or I was unnecessary. And I grew up with that, and it just put a cap on that. And I was very defensive. In fact, and people would say, "But Lori, you scare us a little." And I'm not. There was a part of me for a very long time that was fine with that. I almost liked that actually,
Yeah.
because it was keeping things safe.
Yes.
I had a friend recently tell me a couple years ago. She said, "Laura, it's like you're walking around behind it, like you walk around like you live behind enemy lines." And I thought I'd grown so much. And the truth of the matter is that and it was true. My experience in Team Hope, the support, the believing, the opportunity, to be able to voice things. Even I almost learned part of my experience is I found a way to live that absolutely works. There is a solution, and that was given to me. And Team Hope and this other solution gave me an opportunity to learn how to sit down, shut up, and I say that with love, listen, and explore, and allow people to hear the truth that I perceive. Um, and again, those spaces where it's okay to not know, it's okay to not quite understand. It is okay to experiment, if you will, um, with different ways, which lead to the next step in the journey and the next step in the journey, which allowed me to find voice that I'd been kidnapped as a child. Oh, and not as a victim. I mean, I absolutely was a victim at the time. However, as an adult, I got an opportunity to understand so much more because this horrific negative event had happened to me, not
To you.
because of me.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, not because of me.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, 100%. It was a whole I am so fortunate. The universe has taken me on a wonderful journey,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
sounds funny when you think about it, but it's true.
Yeah.
It's really true.
Well, there's a trauma treatment where, um, it's about well, people have behaviors, and they have certain behaviors because of trauma that they've experienced.
Mhm.
So, when they're having these behaviors, instead of saying, "What's wrong with you? What are you doing?" You say, "What happened to you?" Because the
Mm.
behaviors is a reaction to what happened to you. It
Yeah, no, I like that. It's like I still say it. All the coping mechanisms that I have used to work just fine. They are there. They saved my life.
Yeah,
And when my life gets better, because I'm doing my work, they don't work so good anymore.
right, you don't
I
need
don't want to
them.
keep people away. I don't need them.
Yeah,
But they're still there thinking, no, you need us. You need us. And it's
yes,
like, yeah, I don't think I need you. I don't need to be prickly.
yeah,
I'm just going to be the cactus flower, and enjoy it.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. It's amazing. You don't think I don't think you think this way while you're going through a trauma.
Right.
However, when you come out on the other side, there is well, there's choices to be made. You either
Absolutely.
can grow from the trauma or you can let it hurt you, continue to hurt you. Um, and it just so it helps with your growth, and it is an
Hmm.
opportunity. It's an it's an opportunity to heal, to do better, to be better. I know when Sam was missing, when my son was missing, everything changed. It's like, when you lose someone close to you,
Mhm. Mhm.
everything changes. Your belief system changes. No matter if it's severe or just a little bit, the way you
You
see
bet.
people changes. Who you thought were friends, you don't agree with their values anymore. They're not friends anymore. What you think is important, they don't think is important, and vice versa. It's amazing how everything just seems to change. And it, most of the time, it can be for the better if you let it.
Yeah, absolutely. I like to say, and I've had opportunities, because life doesn't stop just because we got one thing, pinpointed, right?
Right,
I like to say, when I'm at the space, when I can, at the junction, do I want to get better or do I want to get bitter?
right, exactly. That's your choice. Yes,
That's my choice, better or bitter.
yes,
And those are the only two choices because anything in between is just let's be real, we're going bitter.
yes,
Um, do I get better or bitter? And then I can start practicing getting better.
yes,
I tell people all the time a word that's very important to me is we, and it is the first word in the Declaration of Independence. We the
right. We the
people,
people. Yeah,
we the people. It is a first word where we admitted a different side of my life, but it is the first word in that. Our means that we have to do this together. So it's we the people, people, our. We have to do this together. And I have had situations where, as I've worked on getting better, not bitter, I have not, I don't know if I've lost friends, but they sure have kind of faded away. You
yes,
know, it just kind of fades away. And that's where I learned also, okay, some say, for a season or a reason,
that's
you
right.
know, so I couldn't agree with you more. I just couldn't agree with you more. And I think that the therapies that allow people to make those choices and the autonomy that here are, you would know more about that than I, but I can tell you that it's so important. I believe in, if you don't like counseling, call it coaching. I love that.
Yeah,
Um, I think it's important to have somebody. Now, you'll I will tell you that counselors don't like it when I say this. I'm not always in counseling, don't get me wrong, but I am, I'm seeking it out for something right now, as a matter of fact. But I always tell them, I just need somebody that has no emotional investment in my decisions. And they're like, oh, but I care about you. I'm like, I know, but I don't. No, I need to understand that you've got other clients, and I just want to have this time to make my decisions.
yes,
And then they get what I'm trying to say. No emotional investment in what I do or don't do is really important. I think just to have that person there for that is just 60% of what I need usually.
yeah. I never thought about it that way. That's a good way to put it. It really is because you don't want someone who has an emotional investment who will be affected by what you do or what you don't do. Or yeah, I know I was given a gift one time by someone who a young woman, she had been sex trafficked, and
Mhm. Mhm.
she um she shared with me that she hadn't found anyone yet who she could tell her story to without seeing the pain in their eyes. And that's kind of what you were saying, where you don't want the therapist to have an emotional investment. Like, she
Mhm.
needed someone who could just hear her and believe
That's right.
her and not be triggered or hurt by what she was saying.
Well, yeah, I've got wonderful people who love me so much who do have an emotional investment in what I do. And I have those conversations with them and I need that, but not from a therapist. From a
Right.
therapist, I need somebody who's empathetic.
Yes.
I need somebody who's well well understands what I'm looking, somebody who listens well. I mean, but you're right. Yeah, I don't need to be looked at with pity. I don't need to be looked at with horror or, hurt. I don't need that. Um, I, I just, that doesn't help me. What helps me is to have that person who cares about me having the opportunity to work on how am I going to get better so I don't get bitter.
Yeah. Wow. I love talking to you.
Oh, I love talking to you too, Abby. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. I just have one question
Oh,
for you.
you bet.
What would you like our audience to know? What do you want to leave them with?
I want to leave them, may I, with two things because we'll talk about the end of the show. So we're
Yes,
going
you
to save
may.
that one.
Yes.
But I can say it now. Okay.
Yes.
I want to leave them with understanding that there are no moral values when a child either goes missing or is taken. All right. Irrespective of whether we agree with the court order, irrespective of anything, when a child is ripped away from what they know without proper authority, interventions. I'm not, we remove kids from homes all the time because they need to be safe. I'm not talking about that. I'm saying, you got that person down. What I'm saying, Abby, and please, if you find better words, please, I'm trying to say that we need to understand just because it's a family member or a parent doesn't mean that child is emotionally safe, is physically safe.
Right.
It means none of that. We should never minimize that. And if a child is missing, a child is missing, a child is missing, irrespective of, they're missing. And that brings me to the last thing I want to say. My daughter, Stephanie, was missing for 3 months.
Yes.
One, she was found in a state pretty far away, by a member of Team Hope. And I just want to call that out. I have to call that out. All right. She was found in a soup kitchen by a member of Team Hope. And that's how she came home. So, shout out to that person. And I want to tell people the reason that person could find my daughter, she saw my daughter, is because she looked at the posters.
Yes.
Anywhere you see a poster at the end of this podcast, on the grocery store, wherever they are, because there are a lot more places than milk cartons now. Thank you, Adam's father. We want you to look at those posters. I promise you'll remember. And maybe you're going to walk up to a daughter in a soup kitchen who's missing and say, "How's the bread? Pretty good. How come you haven't called your mother and let her call her mother?" Because that's my story. So please look at the posters.
So since you started telling it, to
Yeah.
not leave the listeners curious, you tell the story about
Yeah,
how
I'll tell. Yeah, my daughter was considered a runaway. Now it would be an endangered runaway, and they're not viewed. We all got our ideas. But she was found. We put up flyers in Colorado. I'm going to leave the city out of it. We put up flyers in Colorado because we had gotten information that she came from a little town in Washington State over to Seattle, went to a punk rock concert, and this is pretty typical. Met a boy and took off with that boy on her wild adventure in the summer of 2004. And we've got, through the NCMEC and the case managers and all the work that was done, we found her in the state of Colorado. And she had come into the soup kitchen one time, and the person called, the case manager called Team Home or NCMEC and said, "Can I approach her? She comes back." And the person reported my daughter had a skateboard, a big dog, and was okay. And when I got that, I can't tell you, I cannot tell you, but I cannot tell you, I start crying. And then the next time my daughter came through with her dog, who was Gromit, by the way, the next time she came through, that she did say, How's this food? How's that food?" Her name was Mary. I'll put that out there. She'll know who she is if she gets to see this. Um, and and she said, "And how come the way my daughter reports it to me is, how come you haven't called your mother?" And my daughter just started crying and said, "I don't know how." She had been gone so long. As we all know, sometimes when we make decisions that do not harmonize with who we are, it gets harder to clean them up. And so she got this opportunity and she called me, and it was in a Costco in Yakima, Washington, when I got the phone call, and my daughter was home within a week or two. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was
Yeah.
Team Hope saved me from all sorts of ways. So I can't tell you how much I love the organization, and you, Abby, I love talking with you too. And I can't tell you how I hope that I really appreciate you trusting me to be a guest on your podcast,
Thank you. Yeah.
because I think it's so important. And thank you
Yeah.
for letting me share that.
And that goes both ways. Thank you for trusting me. And talking about posters, that was a great lead in, Laura. It really was.
There we go.
Because I am gonna share my screen now and show you
I
a
promise I'm going to look.
missing child. Here we go. And these are two children, Pico Miller and his sister, Sprinkles Ice Cream Miller. Okay. She's adorable.
That name.
Yes.
I love that. I
She's,
like he's beautiful.
yeah. So they've
Beautiful.
been missing since December 2nd, 2025 from Chicago, Illinois. Pico is 7 years old and Sprinkles is 4 years old. And they were last seen on December 2nd, 2025. And they may be in the company of their mother, Maple Raspberry Miller. She's now 34 years old. And sometimes it's a lot easier to recognize an adult than it is the child. So I encourage you, if you have seen either Pico or Sprinkles or Maple, to please call the Chicago Police Department at 312-745-5020. You can also call the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, their tip line, which is 24/7, 1-800-THE-LOST. Also, if you're just on audio and you don't have a visual, like on YouTube, I encourage you, please go to missingkids.org, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's website, and search for them, and you will see them on that website. Search for Pico and Sprinkles, and they're waiting for you. They're counting on you to be their voice, to be their hero. So I encourage you, please look at their picture, and you can look at other pictures too. And thank you. And Laura, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for being a guest. Oh my gosh, I appreciate you so much. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in to today's podcast. If you have any questions, I'm happy to do my best to answer them and would appreciate your comments and suggestions. You can reach me at the email abduction.victimtosurvivor@gmail.com. And you can also follow the podcast on our Facebook page, Abduction Victim to Survivor. I really hope you will subscribe and leave a review or a comment. I believe your support will help people find their voices and the strength to tell their stories. If you or someone you know is facing family abduction, please reach out to me. You're not alone. And we'll see you next Tuesday on Abduction Victim to Survivor. Thank you all so very much. And thank you. Thank you, Laura.